everyone. This is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. And my guest today is Lisa Copeland. Lisa is a dating coach. She works with women, specifically over 50, helping them to find great quality men. And I'd love to have you on the show, Lisa. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Margaret. Thank you for having me.
It is so wonderful to have an expert in this field because women over 60, you think we would know by now how to do this. But I think we have some misconceptions. And I would love you to answer just a really simple question,
Sure.
and that is, what do single men over 60 want from a woman?
They want a woman who is into her true femininity
Right.
and lets them be a man. They don't want to be criticized. They want to be encouraged. They don't want demands placed on them. They want to be able to give freely what they want to give. And the biggest thing is we forget to encourage them and thank them. And we also have standards in our head of how something should be. And when a guy doesn't do it to that standard, we criticize him or we half-heartedly thank him because we're thinking, oh, I got to go back and do it over.
Yeah, so go back to that thing about being a feminine woman. This is
Uh-huh.
this is a fascinating topic to me because I think that a lot of women in their 50s and 60s were raised in a time when, to get into the workplace, for example, you had to be
Yes.
pushy and competitive, and men in those days, you could flirt with or attract through, you'd be working together or whatever. But how does that change, and how does that feminine side need to be revived in your 60s?
So back in the day, women knew how to be women, but they weren't treated for the respect that they also deserved. They were very much cherished, which was great, but they weren't allowed to go to college. They weren't allowed to do the things that they wanted to do. And when women's lib came along, it opened doors for us that had never been open. But what happened for women is we became super women and we were doing it all. And because we were doing it all, we were draining ourselves and we started to become really anti-men. And so we got this impression that men just can't do it right, and I can do it better, and I can do it faster. And truthfully, we oftentimes can because men think differently than we think. We have a much more broader scope of thinking. Men are very single focused, and because they're so single focused, they can't necessarily see everything that has to be done. So what's happened then, we became super women and women were finding themselves being powerhouses at work. And then they were trying to flip a switch at home and they couldn't flip a switch. And men were saying, you're emasculating me. You're demanding, you're controlling, you're not my boss, things like that.
Yeah, so that is the background, and it's wonderful to see it in
Mm-hmm.
that perspective because it's what we bring with us into our 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
how do we then change that so that when we're looking for a dating relationship, for either a friendship or a dating relationship, we know how to ask men the right questions, to treat them in a way they will respond to. How do we do that?
Well, this even works, by the way, in business. There really doesn't need to be a switch. The key, we as women are very good at getting the cooperation of people. The problem is when we ask women, this is not a problem. This is the problems
Yeah.
with how we ask men. So we ask women, we'll say, let's say a table has to be moved. We'll say, can you help me move this table? And the woman would say, sure, because it's in the spirit of community and we're just making everything better for the whole community. When you say to a man, could you move this table? Could you help me move this table? He hears that as a demand, or he hears it the way he would have heard his mother say, you need to go clean your room, or could you go clean your room? That's how he
Mm-hmm.
hears it.
Mm-hmm.
So the key and our greatest asset is to get the cooperation of a man by asking him in a way that makes him step up to be a man. And you could do this in business as
Yeah.
well, because I've seen clients take this and use it in business. And it's just how you ask.
And how is that? What would you say to a man? What
So what you
specifics?
would
I'm writing it down, Lisa.
well, I will tell you I was the greatest emasculator in my day. And
All right.
after two relationships, they said to me, you don't know how to let a man be a man, or you emasculated me. And I'm thinking, I get along great with men, but I put myself in a competitive position with men that was playful. if you want to be in a relationship with a man, you don't want to compete with him. So the way you ask him to come into cooperation with you is, I need your help, or could you do me a favor? And when a man helps you or does a favor for you, he feels more manly. And men like feeling manly, and we've taken that away from them. We haven't accepted. We want them to accept who we are. Now it's time for us to accept who they are too. And so the other thing you absolutely have to do that men tell me all the time is, women don't appreciate me. Women don't appreciate what I do for them. One of the reasons men, older men like younger women, is younger women are more appreciative, and they don't try and change what they've done or tell them it's not enough or they have to do it this way, or and it's
Mm-hmm.
very hard. We've lived a long life. We've lived alone a lot. So many women alone a long time, or have done things their way for a long time, and it is hard to come in with that compromise.
Now, you've said something that I'm sure people sitting here watching the video are going to just jump at, because that is one of the biggest comments that people in the community make. You know,
Uh-huh.
I've joined a dating site, and these old men are saying want someone between 25 and 35. And is it because in their minds they've got this image of like how they were dating when they were in their 20s?
Yes.
Or is that what it is? Or is it that they simply know that these young girls are going to, say girls, young women are going to be more receptive and giving of them?
It's all of those, plus it's the illusion that we're still 20. So all of us, if you talk to people our age, people will say, uh, I still look so young. Women tell
Yeah.
me all the time, people still tell me I look really young. We come from a time of very much youthfulness. We haven't left the days of peace, love, joy, and happiness, and
Yeah.
that's how we still feel. We
Yeah.
feel inside of ourselves that way. And when our grandparents grew up, when our parents grew up, it was not a youth culture in terms of, I mean, the youth culture began with our generation. So here we are, we're older, we're shockingly in our 50s, 60s, and 70s. Like, how did that happen? We're going online, and when we see ourselves younger, we go online and we see these guys, and they have white hair. They don't dye their hair like we do. They have white hair and they look older. And we go, oh my God, that's my grandfather. That's my father. And that's the problem is that illusion. So men too, they go online and they can look older than God, and they go, everyone looks so old, because they are too. We're not able to see ourselves this way.
Yeah.
But
Sorry. No, go ahead.
Mhm. Oh, but older men, they don't necessarily know what they want because they don't know how awesome women in their 50s are. So if you want to meet a guy, and even though he has 25 to 35 in his profile, just favor him. And if you look good and you have a great profile, the main thing really, it should be great picture and pretty good profile. They might take a second look and think this person would be fun to be with. They don't always know how great women are in their 50s because they have this illusion of what they've seen online.
Right. So men in their 50s and 60s are looking for women to be women. They're looking
Mhm.
for us to be feminine.
Mhm.
And I know you've said this before, and I'd like you to repeat it, about how they want women to make them feel like their hero. Tell me more about what you mean by
Yes.
that. I
They
know a lot of women are going to say, no, I
they're
don't
gonna
want
go,
to be my hero.
"Oh."
But tell me what you mean by that, and why you think that men in their 60s do want that from a woman.
Men instinctually want to be your hero. All you got to do is go back to what the DNA coding is within us. And that is where what in the caveman days, the man was the one who made you feel safe, protected, and provided for. And the woman was more the nurturer, made sure everyone was okay. And she made sure the man was okay. How many of us have turned ourselves inside out like pretzels to make sure a man was okay? It comes from our DNA coding at this time, because if that man wasn't okay, you could die too. If a man
Yeah,
wasn't there for
yeah.
you. So it comes from them.
So that's really important, Lisa. And I think you're right that we still have these instincts from times when we were, in caveman days, to, generalize, but, that we have it in us for women to be nurturers, men to be the leaders.
Hmm.
But in today's modern world, I mean, is this really still applicable? I mean, do men really respect and expect women to kind of be, what's the word, give in to their need to be strong and caveman-like, or, do they want women to be strong?
Well, here's something interesting. I've worked with a lot of career women who, in their first marriages, married what's called a beta man. And the beta man left it to that woman to make all the decisions he respected her. She in turn cherished him. They said to me, I really want an alpha man because even as strong as we are, we want to be able to lean into a man to help him keep us safe and protected. It is just a natural inborn desire. So we've been fighting this piece of ourselves thinking we weren't okay enough if we had to lean into a man to keep us feel safe and protected. But we are very okay. And that is in our DNA coding, and it's not worth fighting. So a man wants to be your hero in terms of making you feel safe and protected and provided for to the best of his ability. And that is what makes him feel a hero and appreciated. That's huge.
Okay. I think that's what you've given us a different lens on this. I think that women over 60, are still feeling perhaps hurt from a relationship or, as you said, from just their experience in the workplace. And they're not really ready to surrender that sense of control and allowing their femininity. I remember, I think once before we were talking and I love this example, when you're with someone having dinner and, and someone, makes a comment about, or, he says something like, well, I think that this, is not a good meal or something like that. And then and instead of being combative, you say, would you mind if I gave my opinion, or is it okay if I give my opinion on that? And rather than being pushy yourself, just say, hey, it's okay if I have a point of view on that.
Well, instead of saying, is it okay if I give my opinion, because that gives your power away to him.
Okay, what do I say?
You say something like, I have some thoughts about that I'd love to share. Would you like to hear them? And you have to be prepared for them to say no. But most of the time they will say yes, because you asked in a way that didn't take anything away from him. And that was really going to enhance things for him. The key is we take away from men a lot of times, not realizing we're taking away from them. And it very much is language. It's something you can practice with waiters, with the guy that bags your groceries, with a man you ask a question of. Always say, thank you. I so appreciate that. Or could you do me a favor? Could you reach that can up there on the shelf for me? Watch a man's chest puff up when he makes you safe and protected and okay in some way and provided for. Their chests literally physically puff up because you made them feel good.
Well, I think that everyone in our community, all 46,000 women, deserve this man. And I hope that because this male energy is, as you've always said, really great and important. And, it's good advice. Thank you so much. Sorry.
It doesn't take anything away from you. No. It actually adds power to what you have in a relationship. And that's our biggest fear, is that we're going to lose our power. You lose your power when you make a demand of a man, like in the sentence I told you earlier. That's where you lose your power. Whereas when you get his cooperation and he can hear it as she's trying, as being a man. All we're doing is learning how to re-recognize men, but still being recognized for how wonderful we are too, and what we're capable of doing.
And Lisa, you've just said something which is great, and I shouldn't have assumed that every one of the 46,000 wants a man in their life, because I think what you've been saying all along is just to know yourself and be really comfortable with the multifaceted woman that you are, and to be able to be feminine and nurturing with everybody that you come across. So I think you've given us some great advice, and I really, really appreciate your insights, Lisa. Thank you again.
Thank you, Margaret.
Take good care.
You too.
Thank you.